Fellow defenders, listen up. CyberTech79 here, and I am issuing an official Code Ninja security advisory. Right now, we're tracking a highly critical, unpatched local privilege escalation vulnerability in the Linux kernel, specifically assigned CVE-2026-43494. Because a fully functional, one-click proof of concept is already circulating out there in the wild, we're executing a coordinated vulnerability disclosure protocol through this briefing today. Our goal? Force upstream fixes and protect the perimeter.
To make sure we're all operating with absolute tactical precision, here is our briefing protocol. We are going to cover 1. The 0-day, 2. Threat census, 3. The deep dive, 4. Mitigation and defense protocol, and 5. The ethics and sign-off.
All right, initiating Section 1, the 0-day. Our primary objective right now is sheer situational awareness. We are dealing with a severe threat. It is actively weaponizable, it gives an attacker complete system compromise, and currently, there is 0 official vendor patch.
Okay, let's dive into this. The threat has been dubbed PinTheft. It's an absolute nightmare of a double free memory corruption flaw living in the Linux kernel's net/RDS module. You know, the reliable Datagram Sockets module. Basically, if you have the RDS module enabled, you're vulnerable, right up to the latest stable release, version 7.0.9. This flaw lets a local user escalate their privileges straight to root. They literally get the keys to the kingdom.
To really wrap our heads around the gravity of PinTheft, we've got to look at the broader timeline. We're right in the thick of what the community is already calling the May 2026 kernel crisis. I mean, defense teams are feeling extreme alert fatigue right now. Late April, boom, we got hit with CopyFail. Early May, DirtyFlag and Fragnesia forced these massive, panicked patching cycles. Then, right at peak exhaustion, May 19th, an AI code audit firm named V12 Security dropped the PinTheft 0-day disclosure, completely uncoordinated. And they threw a functional PoC on GitHub for good measure. By May 21st, the CVE was published, and active scanning alerts just started hammering SOCs globally.
Moving on to Section 2, Threat Census. Before we get into the highly technical weeds of how this exploit functions, we need to pause deliberately and establish an essential communication link. Real-time intel is an absolute security necessity right now, so I need you to hit subscribe to CyberTech79 and turn on notifications so you do not miss the update when an upstream patch finally drops. Also, drop a like on this explainer as a formal ACK, an acknowledgement of receipt for this intel. And finally, we're running a live threat census. Comment below with your current status. Are you patched via a custom kernel build, or are you sitting vulnerable? Your input literally helps the whole community map the blast radius of this 0-day.
Entering Section 3, the deep dive. Let's transition into the technical breakdown of exactly how this vulnerability operates under the hood and how it is being actively weaponized out there. Now, what's really interesting about this is the massive threat intelligence discrepancy that's kind of masking the true danger of PinTheft. The National Vulnerability Database initially slapped this with a CVSS v3 base score of 5.5. They rated it a medium severity just because it requires a local attack vector. But Tenable? They issued an internal base score of 9.8, flagging it as critical. And why the massive jump? Well, because combining an easy-to-use public proof of concept with an absolute lack of vendor patches creates a perfect storm for rapid privilege escalation.
If you are running enterprise vulnerability scanners, you're going to want to screenshot this intel right now. Nessus plugin ID 31604 confirms that several major distributions are severely impacted and totally unpatched. Specifically, we're looking at Debian Linux versions 11.0, 12.0, 13.0, and 14.0 sitting directly in the crosshairs. Look, if your infrastructure relies on these versions and has RDS enabled, consider this an active emergency.
And this brilliantly illustrates the precise execution flow of the attack at the code level. It all starts with an initial failure during a zero-copy operation, where the iov get pages 2 function fails. The kernel tries to clean up after itself, but here is the fatal flaw. It neglects to reset the op_nence variable back to 0. Actually, scratch that. It completely forgets to reset it. So later, when the RDS message purge function gets called, the cleanup loop blindly trusts that incorrect non-zero count. It iterates over entries that have already been freed and frees them a second time. Boom. Classic double free memory corruption. Finally, as that public PoC demonstrates, an attacker just leverages the IOUring module alongside this double free primitive to overwrite the page cache of a SUID binary, a program that executes with elevated privileges, instantly granting them a root shell.
Executing Section 4, Mitigation and Defense Protocol. We urgently need to pivot from the problem to the solution here. Remember, there are no vendor patches available from the major Linux distributions as of this broadcast. We have to defend the perimeter ourselves.
So, the crucial point is that we must block the exploit chain structurally. Here are your actionable mitigation steps. First, if your operational requirements allow for it, immediately disable the RDS module entirely. Second, if doing that live isn't feasible, blacklist the RDS module so it simply cannot load upon reboot. And third, because this privilege escalation relies heavily on memory manipulation, heavily restrict unprivileged access to the IOUring module. Implementing these steps is going to effectively break the attacker's ability to trigger the double free and overwrite that memory.
Finally, Section 5, the ethics and sign-off. Before we wrap up, we've got to briefly address the nature of this disclosure, specifically that uncoordinated release by V12 Security.
Look, dropping a 0-day with a functional exploit and zero patch is a highly controversial move. It puts immense, crushing stress on defenders. However, now that the genie is officially out of the bottle, secrecy only benefits the adversaries. We are publishing this advisory today under the strict belief that, in the interest of full disclosure, you need to know exactly how to protect your systems. Our goal here is to empower immediate defense and apply maximum public pressure on those vendors to get an official patch out the door.
The May 2026 kernel crisis has proven that our foundational infrastructure is under heavy scrutiny by researchers and threat actors alike. Which leaves us with this provocative final thought. How many more undiscovered zero-day flaws are silently hiding in trusted legacy kernel modules right this second, just waiting to be popped? Keep your shields up, apply those mitigations, and as always, stay secure.